Warning: the podcast you are about to listen to discusses films on the basis of the craft of screenwriting. It contains spoilers. Films discussed may also contain offensive content.
In today's episode, we will be discussing Pitch Black, released in 2000, and Nimona, released in 2023.
Hey, it is Jay and Dave's Went to Film School podcast coming at you.
Yeah, live from another parking lot. This time, Home Depot.
We're at the Scott Road Home Depot, moving up in the world.
Moving up in the world, yes. Of course, this podcast is not sponsored by Home Depot, but if they'd like to...
Free sponsor, free advertising for Home Depot.
Yes, get your hammers, wood planks.
Everything you need to build your own house.
Yeah. You ever think about renovating?
I would have to have a house first to renovate.
No, that's a good point. We are scriptwriters, aren't we?
Yeah, it'll be a while. But I have done a fair bit of construction in my life.
Really?
I worked construction.
I mean, I guess it's not surprising being from Alberta.
I guess. I mean, there's houses everywhere, construction everywhere. But there were a lot of people who did construction in my church, and so that's where I got a job after high school.
Oh, you did like missionary thing where like you built like houses?
Well, so I did go actually. I'm talking about a regular job, but
I see.
I did go down to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and did some building with aid organization.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
That was a cool trip.
I figured, because I wasn't kind of like alive when that kind of happened. Like I was born when Hurricane Katrina happened, but I was like 3. So.
Oh yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was just a super interesting part of the world to be in. Deep South America. It was cool. I had jambalaya.
Oh, dude.
And po' boy sandwiches.
That's good, dude.
Highly recommended. And we helped build someone's house who had their house destroyed. So good feeling to be part of that. Dude,
that was actually... Well, good for you. Because you have to understand, like, that's the one thing, right, about, part of the, the Jay and Dave Goes to Film School podcast. Like, you are genuinely, like, quite older than me, so you've actually lived through historical events that I could only have read about.
Yeah, and let me tell you about the siege of Constantinople in 1142.
Oh, dude.
I was there too.
Oh, that's crazy, dude. Yeah, was it Alexander the Great?
It was, yeah, I think so. I didn't remember.
Oh, you were just on like the front. It was just some guy who was just like ordering you around.
I don't know if I believed in the cause.
Yeah.
I was just kind of caught up in it all.
Yeah, well, at least now it's in Istanbul, I suppose. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was all for the name change.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But speaking about films...
Yes, back to the actual topic of our podcast.
Before we went over to, you being just a genuinely amazing person. Congratulations again.
A genuinely old, amazing person.
Yes.
Which one is more so? We're not sure.
I think it's equally both.
Well, you've got a bunch of chances to do amazing things in the amount of life you have yet to live.
Yeah, I figured, we're going through a very interesting time in the world now. A lot of history changes and shifts,
Mm-hmm.
I still remember once, like, the new, decade rolled around. People were like, oh, we're back in the roaring 20s. The roaring 20s. Jazz is coming back. Things are going to be better, we're going to be cool. But people forget that the Great Depression happened in the 1920s. So...
Yeah, the 30s quickly subsumed the 20s.
Yeah. But I'm all up for it, Can't wait to see, the mafia guys rolling around, talking about prohibition and, shifting alcohol around. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's been replaced by, like, AI.
AI is the new alcohol?
No, AI is the new mafia.
Oh, maybe, or both.
Maybe both,
Maybe
right?
they will be the thing that polices the thing that they're policing all in one.
I suppose so, right?
And humans will just be redundant.
Maybe. Or, we're just, enjoying the illegal alcohol they're producing. It's wrong, but apparently it tastes good still.
Yeah. AI will become so good at mimicking our human struggles and controversies that it will just perpetuate them long after it destroys us.
Very philosophical, dude. I just still think AI is just kind of scary, but there you go.
There is genuine concern that ought to be had about AI. But once again, back to film.
This is probably going to happen a lot when we start our podcast. We had like a whole script ready and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. I would say that's what this first portion of the podcast should allow for.
Yeah, just time to get if you want to get a bathroom break in, you just go through this part.
That's right.
You're just cooking the popcorn in the background. It's a good thing to listen to before we get to the main event.
Have a phone call.
Yeah, phone call, right?
Yeah, you can always skip ahead.
Exactly, right? We'll put like a timestamp in. It's like, this is when David stops talking.
When Jay and Dave talk about something relevant. But maybe there's some things that people enjoy about our witty banter.
Oh,
which is upcoming.
Yes, the witty banter has not happened yet.
But back to our script.
Yeah.
We were going to talk about animation. No, you tell me what we were going to talk about.
Yeah, because part of talking about film, we have to talk about the ways we like them, right? This is kind of like the whole idea of the podcast. Like, I give you a film to watch, you give me a film to watch, and we kind of rank it based on our own personal opinions, right? And I think we do differ in the qualities of film we value more whenever you watch it, right? Because I think I've said in a couple previous episodes that I'll watch the Oscars, right? And you're like, oh, this one won Best Picture, this one won Best writing and whatever. But they're I'll look at all the nominations, be like, I'm still not too interested in watching some of these films. Not because they're bad or anything, it's just I'm not too interested, right? I don't think that the Fast and Furious series, I always reference the Fast and Furious series because it's just the first one pops in my mind of this is just straight up action blockbuster. You sit down, you get some popcorn, you enjoy that, right? It's never going to hold a candle, right? If you were to put them side to side, as an artistic thing to sort of Oppenheimer or Titanic or even the Avatar films, it's not close. But I think I'll still enjoy the Fast and Furious series more as just a casual viewer than watching Oppenheimer more than once. But you still have to actually. It's a 3-hour movie, and I get the cinematography is brilliant, right? The acting in it is amazing, but I'll watch the one nuclear bomb test scene I've watched on YouTube a couple times and thought that's a pretty cool bomb scene, but the most of it's just talking. It's cool, Albert Einstein's in it, and I like an Albert Einstein guy, and I think it's probably one of the more accurate Albert Einsteins have been put to the screen, especially with his hair. They did some great makeup with the hair. That's straight up Albert Einstein. But it's a 3-hour movie that's mostly talking with a couple explosions. And it's fun, it's a biography. If you want to learn about Robert Oppenheimer, go ahead. But hey.
Yeah, film is such a wide place to tell stories in.
It is.
And then over time, this whole thing with genre came about. It would be fascinating to look at how that kind of started and evolved and brought us to what we have today. But part of what you're talking about is our appreciation of genre.
A little bit. Because as an animation guy, there's just elements of the genre that just fully appeal to me, which is mostly, it's completely hand-drawn, it's always something different. That was the one thing that I liked more about animation and live action, is that you could always kind of expect a different visual style. Because of course with cinematography for live action, into different ways you can film a thing, right? A thriller, a scene that you film for a thriller will always be sometimes a little bit different than the scene you'd film from a romance, right? With filters and camera angles. But with an animation, a human character could look hundreds of different ways on screen. You could make the same scene like 1,000 different ways. So it always still feels fresh to me, even though like I've seen some of the stories so many different times. But yeah, like apart from that, and actually this is going to be a small tangent. I never really viewed animation as a genre because I think it's more like a medium of storytelling.
And which has the same genres.
But it has the same genres, right?
Live action.
Exactly. So it's always hard for me, honestly, to like look up sometimes like on Netflix, like, oh, good animations to watch, because they'll just pile every single animation to one category. I'm like, I kind of just want like an animation mystery, an animation genre, animation adventure, right?
I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that yet.
I don't think they have, right?
But with the more movies that are filling up, there will be eventually more genre classifications, and they probably will even classify things under animation with different genres.
Yeah, it at least helped me, browse whenever like I'm going through like a streaming catalog to be like, I want to watch this today, instead of having to like dig through everything to find the one I want.
But that said, if there are things, like you say, you want to sometimes maybe watch an animation mystery, there is something about the mystery portion of that has an essence that if you enjoy that, potentially you could enjoy non-animated mysteries.
Exactly, right? Because like I've watched like Knives Out, which is the Ryan Johnson, I think he's called, and I genuinely loved that, right? Because it was really funny. It was honestly really enthralling. Like the cast of characters had like really good suspects in them, and like because like again like I'm not averse to watching live action. It's just I'm more inclined to watch an animation than anything else. So like I've watched like Agatha Christie's like Murder on the Orient Express because I've read the book, and it was actually really cool to see it on film. And like I just think, right, like, in my personal ranking, like, I kind of value a movie's entertainment value more than kind of its artistic value, in a way. Like, it'll at least get my butt into a seat, right? Like, if I'm like, walking through, like, a movie theater, I'm starting to see posters, and I see that one's definitely going to be exciting, but might not be as good, I'll still watch the more exciting one. And then if somebody asks me, like, do you want to watch the artistic one? I'm like, okay, I'll only go to it because you told me to go watch it. You kind of, I need that extra, like, motivation to do it.
Right. But have you noticed that when you have done that, maybe in some cases, that you found more appreciation than you initially thought you might have had before? Which is honestly why I like kind of like how we always like trading films, because like I'm always so surprised like watching a movie like that, and like just the things they can do with a live action. With like especially because a lot of the movies you recommend me are like from like the older years where a lot of the more effects were more practical. The CGI was still very limited, so they only had to use in very, very particular cases. So it always felt a little bit more impactful. But like, yeah, like I even like watched like this is gonna show my age a little bit more, but like I only like watched Jurassic Park like 2 years ago. Oh wow! I know, because like no, not even 2 years ago, like 1 year ago, because it was recommended in the VFS course because we talked about it. I was like, oh, and then like I saw the dinosaurs, like, oh, wow. And that was an example of a mixture of practical and CGI. Yeah, practical and CGI, right? In fact, I think it was all practical until the final fight scene. Yeah, I figured, right? Because there was like a lot of like dinosaur on dinosaur action. So, unless you want to mash Muppets together. I mean, they did it with, what is it, the Dark Crystal, Because I've watched like the Muppets, but hey. I think it was a little bit more impactful to see like, full dinosaurs going on. It was an example of, I think, a good use of both. I think it was, yeah. But I'm curious, what was your impression like of the whole movie? Of Jurassic Park? Yeah. It was definitely like, because like it was a mixture of science and like action, right? And like I kind of do like it when a movie does kind of like do like either like real like pseudoscience or like full science, because like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting enough. And there's like an element of me like, I'll go Google that and be like, oh no, it's true. And then it's like my appreciation of it goes up because they actually did like the research. But like it was always kind of it was a little bit slow at the beginning, but it was still interesting enough. Then once we like shifted into like, oh, the dinosaurs are broken out, we need to survive this thing. I was like, okay, wow, this is a full action. I'm into it. There's kids in danger. The scientists are evil. But like you had like the clear like two dynamic heroes, like the guy and the girl going together, and like honestly, I kind of liked it more than the Jurassic World sequels. Good job.
Thank you.
I have to concur with that, and that's like a check mark on your resume.
Thank you. Better than Jurassic World. He understands.
Yes.
It's like, saying episode 4 Star Wars is definitively better than like episode like 1 or 2.
Exactly.
It's like
exactly. Well, so that also makes me want to recommend to you the author of Jurassic Park,
Really?
Michael Crichton.
Oh, yeah.
It's based on a book. He's the one who did the research and wrote the book. And he has written several books, and they're really good. If you like that kind of science sci-fi blend, highly recommended. They made a few into movies as well.
Because like Tom Clancy does that as well, where because like I like the authors that actually genuinely they dive into it. They give you like the whole research, but like sometimes it's kind of bland to read on the page.
Yeah, and Tom Clancy does that, but he's more military. Operations. But Michael Crichton's more just the science. How can science go wrong in a realistic way, in maybe science that maybe isn't fully here yet, but could be. It's kind of like the 5 minutes into the future science. Is what they call it.
He's still alive, right?
Actually, Michael Crichton passed away. He was I forget what it was, but some disease I think took him early.
Yeah, before 2000.
No, it was only in the last 10 years that he passed away. I believe.
Darn. He would really love to write about AI.
Well, he wrote one called Prey, Prey.
Oh.
And it was about nanotechnology, and I believe there was an AI edge to that. It's been a while since I've read it, but it was a good book.
Yeah.
They haven't made that one into a movie yet, but I always thought they would.
Well, there you go. It's the Dave and Jay recommend books to read segment.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to like reviews, right? Because do you value like the entertainment value of a movie? Like, does that help you like with your ranking? Because like sometimes I'll look up like the Rotten Tomatoes score for like very entertaining movies, and I'll always see that the audience score is like super high, but then the critic score is like super low. Because I guess, the audiences are valuing it more on like their entertainment value, and the critics are valuing it more like on an artistic movie, cinematic value, right? So,
yeah, I think I'm pretty. I can segment a movie into many different qualities and factors to evaluate, and if one of them is quite high, that might affect my overall view of the movie, even if other parts are low. And so it all depends, and that's kind of a pretty non-committal answer, but I just think that my evaluation of movies can be different things at different times will affect my enjoyment, and so I might say a movie's great for its artistic quality, even if there wasn't a lot of action or movement, or I might find that a movie that was supposed to be artistic wasn't good because it didn't have enough movement, and even though it was fairly artistic, so either one might overpower the other, depending on how much there is of those, and that might affect my overall ranking of it.
Yeah, no, I got
personal opinion of it.
Because you wouldn't compare like an extremely like artistic movie like, I don't know, Bridge to Inisherin, the first one pops to my mind. You wouldn't compare that to like the Transformers film that was genuinely made for like entertainment. You couldn't really weight the two equally.
I mean, I would be careful when you say genuinely made for entertainment, because the artistic one was made for entertainment too.
Really? Okay.
It is, and people are entertained by the art. And so I guess here's maybe the other thing that you're kind of exposing with this conversation is, if we get emotionally impacted by a movie, that's entertainment.
That is entertainment, yes.
And so even if it's not very showy, if it manages to get in there and touch us in some way, move us emotionally in some way, that's what we're going for. So then that's entertainment.
No, I got you. So you'd say like the word spectacle in reference to a movie could take on different forms, right?
I mean, I think there's a certain connotation with spectacle. You would tend to put that on movies that have the visual factor in some way. Maybe it's action, like huge dinosaurs or monsters, or maybe it's costume. Huge effort at putting the costumes into play. And that could be a spectacle. But if it was a really, like, subdued character drama, not very flashy in any way, then you probably, even if it was really emotionally powerful, you probably wouldn't use the word spectacle.
No, I got you. Yeah, you don't value emotion as spectacle.
Well, I myself wouldn't link those words. I'm kind of a words guy, so
I
like to be... I like to use words, hopefully precisely, but that doesn't say that an emotional movie wouldn't be powerful. I might use the word powerful.
That's good, right? So, like, because, like, you know, it is a word that's thrown around in reviews. So if a movie is like, you know, if a movie doesn't say like this is a spectacle, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not boring, right?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just a different way to value it.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. So where do you put like the actual elements of a story in there, like a plot or like a structure, you know, characters? Does it ever impact like the way you rank something?
Yeah, because that's another thing that you can kind of classify and appreciate. Yes. So if there's a character that's really well formed and has elements that are well crafted and kind of real, like, connects with life in a meaningful way, you might say the character is what makes that movie. And so that might elevate, if it's a really good character, that might elevate the overall take or impression of the movie.
Oh, there you go. Because, yeah, like, in my personal ranking, right, like, if you take those three elements we talked about, which is, you know, entertainment, artistry, and then, like, the physical story, like, value of it, its structure and all that, I kind of rank them, like, you know, entertainment first, and then the artistic value next, and then story, actually, which always felt weird to me as a writer. But, like, I'm still viewing this as like, a casual movie watcher. Because, like, again, like, I'll watch a movie for its entertainment value that gets me in the seat, right? And then if someone tells me it's artistic, you know, they'll be like, okay, I'll go in it because you said that. But then once it's, like, story, it's like, oh, it's kind of like the cherry on top. It's like the thing that I don't really, like, think about when coming into a movie. And I always, like, expect it with low expectations. So that's why it always makes me kind of very surprised whenever a story is really, really good. Right. Despite, you know, the other two qualities being, you know, and something entertaining and something artistic. Kind of being, like, falling off a little bit, but the story is genuinely, like, really impactful. I'll still come away from that movie feeling like, oh, that was pretty good, but I kind of wish it was better, right? Right.
Yeah, these are all things, and this is one of the things that makes screenwriting really hard. Is that you need to have all these elements. You need to have all the aspects of good story present for it to be a script that all the different aspects of, like, story, character, emotion, dialogue, all of them for a script to be successful. If you've got, you know, 3 of them or 4 of them, but you need all of them, and that makes it really challenging.
It does. I think that comes down to both the writer and the director, I think, in terms of, you know, being able to capture that visual aspect and also the story aspect. And I think the perfect blend of that together was entertainment, which I think is what a movie should always be.
Well, when you have all of them, it certainly amounts to entertainment.
Yeah.
Definitely. I would find it tough to just say entertainment by itself, because entertainment's kind of like a nebulous term.
It is a nebulous term, yeah. And, you know, of course, different people find different things entertaining. You just need to go onto, like, Letterboxd or you know, what do you call them, movie review websites, Google or something like that. Rotten Tomatoes, thank you. To see that people will hate, you know, a movie that's genuinely liked by a lot of people, and people will like a movie that's genuinely hated by a lot of people. But
yeah, like, what's up with the the professional review and journalism community that sometimes is totally different than the audience reviews.
Exactly.
How do you explain that?
Well, first of all, like, this is my opinion on reviews. I don't read reviews for movies I'm genuinely interested in watching. I only read reviews for movies I'm kind of like on the fence about watching to get my gauge, like, is this worth my time? Right?
And when you say reviews, any reviews or journalist reviews?
Any reviews,
Okay.
like literally both audiences and like with critics, because I kind of like I kind of like also put it down for like spoilers as well, because like some people like including that. So that's just me avoiding it. But like I don't want my opinion like tainted before coming into a movie I genuinely want to watch. But there's sometimes where like I'll see a trailer, I'll be like, okay, it looks interesting, but I don't really know. I'm gonna read the reviews for it, see what's it about, right? And like I'll read mostly the audience reviews because I kind of trust it a little bit more because they're not getting paid by anyone. These are genuine people
That you know of.
that I don't know of. Yeah, exactly, right? So I kind of there's an element of like no bias in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'll still read like a couple of the critics reviews, mostly the higher ones, because then at least at that point they're talking about the best quality aspects of it. And then I might read, because like the way they're structured, like in the list, there's probably always going to be like a lower rated one, and I'll just read that one to be curious why this person disagrees. But
That's I mean, wise navigating of the online review world. It's same thing with like product reviews.
yeah, exactly, right. But like I think this is probably like the way I think most people should read reviews, and that's just to kind of use your own, I guess, critical thinking and your own like perspective on it, instead of just taking anybody's word for granted. You know, I still think reviews should just be informational, but I don't think they should fully speak to a movie's character. Like if like you went to like Metacritic or something, like, oh, this movie is 67%. What does that mean? It's like it was mediocre, it was okay. Because like, I feel like I've watched like many movies that have been like genuinely like, as like an audience and critic, 50%, 60%, and still walked away like, yeah, that was okay. Like, it's like the kind of movie that makes me hesitant to put it at like the top of like my list on like Letterboxd. Like this is the best movies I've ever watched, because like I can see like it's not that amazingly artistic. There are stories that did this better, right? There's movies that done the story better, and like it was kind of boring in a lot of places, but I still kind of like it was endearing. So I don't know. Maybe even still, like there's like some movies that are just genuinely like targeted towards a very very specific person, and I'm very very happy those movies exist for a person who is specifically me. But like I can understand why some people wouldn't like that.
Well, and that's part of the problem too.
Yeah.
Whether it's not really a problem, it's just part of the situation, is that movies are subjective.
Yes.
Our enjoyments, our tastes are subjective. And so it's the same thing goes with entertainment. And so a movie that communicates something to you might communicate nothing to me. Or entertain you might not entertain me. And so that would affect our reviews of it, but that doesn't necessarily say anything to the next person.
Yeah.
I think that you're always going to get that. Now, I still think it's good to have reviews because you can communicate different things. Sometimes you can read a review and say, okay, this person doesn't like a movie for this and this reason, but I understand why he's saying that, and I know that I could still enjoy this movie. And so it's just something where you have to kind of develop an understanding and anticipation of how people review things and factor that in. It's kind of always how it's been.
Yeah, I get that. So I just feel like as the creators, you know, as the script writers, it's probably always better just to write something you'd be interested in watching, as like just a general rule. Like just write something you would love to watch on screen. Which I think you'd agree with, right?
I mean, I would, but that's the classic question of when do you sell out and do something for the paycheck?
Because I was going to lead into that, because like I know that's the diametric like back and forth tug of war of our industry. Is like, you know, the artistic love of film and then what actually makes money. Which is honestly why I like indie films, because they're like, oh, you know, screw it, I'll fund it myself, I'll make it myself. But like I feel like at our stage of career, we're gonna have to I mean, by the very nature of us looking for a job simply for a paycheck, that's kind of us already selling out in a little bit of a sense.
So, you're such a sellout. You gotta put food on the table.
Exactly.
Come on.
It's like, I live in Vancouver. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I'll have to work on a B movie eventually. But yeah, like, I still hope that while I'm still even working on those projects, that I'm still having fun with it. Like, because I still like that kind of like element of like problem solving when it does come to script writing. Like, okay, this is a story I have to tell. How do I tell it in a way that still kind of like does the functions of a film and be good? So I honestly, like, this is going to be like a slightly like another tangent of mine. Learning about script writing and creative writing, like in school, was so much more fun to receive notes on than anything else. Like, if I got a science problem wrong, if I got a math problem wrong, they told me I got it wrong, this is how you do it. Mm-hmm. When I got something, I guess, in air quotes, wrong when I was doing creative writing, it's like, okay, this could be improved. Mm-hmm. This is the multitude of ways it can be improved, but try it out more, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of like directly, you did it wrong, this is how you do it. It's like, you know, this could be better, experiment. And
here's an option. Like, then someone throws out an idea.
Yeah,
and then that
exactly.
spurs your thinking, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. Oh, that makes me think of this way or that way. Or what they said was like the best idea.
Whenever, like, because I always figured, like, creative writing, instead of being evaluative in, like, a school set, it was almost, like, communicative, right? It wasn't evaluation, it was communication. It's, like, a whole, like, I've honestly felt the most learning in a creative writing classroom, because I kind of felt like everybody was in it together, mm-hmm. instead of, like, a business transaction of, like, give me a grade. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But, you know.
Yeah, there's just so many avenues a story can take.
Yeah.
So and sometimes it's not just a story issue, it's like a character issue. How do I make this character work better? And then people throw out ideas about that. And yeah, I agree. I found the workshopping process incredibly helpful and part of the learning process when it comes to screenwriting.
Yeah. And now we're on this kind of like conversation about, like, you know, what makes a movie good, and also our element of script writing. Like, that was the one question that's always in the back of my mind whenever I'm like doing editing, whenever I'm learning about creative writing, is like, how close to perfect do I want this to be, right? Should I always be aiming for perfect? Because, like, not only do I know, like, I'm human, and, like, not only do I know that no matter what I do, somebody's still going to give me notes in it, I kind of intrinsically know that there are bad movies. Mm-hmm, there are bad movies that exist in this world, that have been given money, that have been worked on by crews of people numbering in the hundreds, mm-hmm. you know, that have gone to theaters and spent money on advertising and revenue and, like, publicity and whatever. Mm-hmm. But they're just, by all standards, entertainment-wise, artistically-wise, story-wise, bad. Mm-hmm. But they get produced.
Yep.
And here I am trying to make my pretty okay story slightly better when I know, you know, not to screw on anybody, but Madam Web exists, and Morbius exists, right? And The Room also exists.
And many more.
Many more, right?
Yeah.
So, you know.
There's a line. There's a point when you have to, it's diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And you have to realize, like, there's going to be a buyer out there for movies of this caliber that you've written. And of course, that's a whole nother thing that we're entering into to try to figure out is how to sell these things. But at some point, we have to start new scripts, so exactly. that we can keep developing something and not just keep polishing the one thing that we've already made.
Which is why I'm honestly kind of happy that I only have, like, the one big idea, like my own one personal project that I want to, like, spend genuine years working on. And then I'm fine, just, like, because I have, like, all of my passion there, I'm fine, like, kind of, like, going a little bit soulless into other things I'm working on. Just to be like, okay, this is kind of, like, the job I'm doing, you know, still have fun with it. But, like, my passion's there, and no matter what I do for this job, I still love what I'm doing over here. Mm-hmm. So, well, you know.
And that's you're not a sellout.
I'm not
for getting a job.
Thank you, Jason. And I believe you will be that too.
Thank you. Well, we should maybe move to talking about the movies that we exchanged.
Yes.
So Nimona, pretty cool movie. You didn't tell me that it was the Godzilla origin story.
Yeah, it is a kaiju. There's a kaiju battle in Nimona. Yeah, but how do you like it? You know?
Yeah, it was an interesting story. It was very fast paced. It had just this real element of fun throughout it, and I'm sometimes worried a little bit with the fast-pacedness of animation because I have this concept that it's contributing to the lack of attention span of the next generation kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like good ones slow it down, and this one also slows it down.
It does get emotional.
And so I'm gonna talk about the things that worked first, and then I'll talk about a few things that didn't quite work. But I loved the genre mashup that it was. It was kind of like fantasy sci-fi, or like this envisioning of a fantasy world that eventually progressed and developed into a modern day that actually, or beyond modern day, and had these futuristic elements overlaid on a fantasy world, which is pretty unique. There's not too many movies that do
it's not too many, because like whenever they say like, okay, fantasy world future, it's always steampunk. It's like, okay, just do more, gears and brass and copper and big pipes that spew smoke. But it's like LED screens and like holograms. They have a subway system in the fantasy world. But yeah, no, it's
so I thought that was really unique and fresh. I think genre mashups are like super interesting, and I think we learned, I can't remember which class it was, but the teacher said you kind of need to do genre mashups now. Movies that tend to get big and popular, at least a big portion of them, are cross genre now.
Yeah, which I think mathematically at least it definitely gives you more avenues of different movies to make. Because, I don't know how many genres there are, but, if anybody's done probability knows, you just start multiplying those things up. You quickly get into, the hundreds of thousands of movies you could possibly make, Once you start getting, horror, thriller, fantasy, romance, romance, suspense, I don't know, periodical Western. There's...
And it's a product of the fact that the entertainment industry, the film industry, has been around for so long. There's so many movies in the existing genre, as currently kind of defined, that the new story ideas that come up, the ones that cross those genre boundaries and merge, those are more interesting. Or at least they scratch an itch that we don't already have a million of these in this genre. So now this is something new.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the one thing I always worried about. It's like, how do you keep it fresh? But I feel like every single story that's ever been made has already been made. I can see why we do have to do mashups now. But I almost kind of feel like, as people who've grown up with all those films, it almost comes naturally. Because, that's the kind of films we want to make anyways. Because, we've already seen it.
Yeah,
we don't want to do it again.
We've kind of got a sense of that, those genres in that way are good. And now we're getting a nice lawn care professional sound.
A leaf blower, seems like. Oh.
The other thing I was gonna say about this movie that I felt where they kind of missed some of the emotional impact that they were going for was that and they kind of address it midway through when they do the bit of more of a reveal. But they're starting off with making this character who's a shapeshifter, trying to say, the world hates me because I'm different, but the fact that she's a shapeshifter is just so cool. It was hard to believe that, because it's not like this dragon or monster that's also a girl. It's a girl who's everything. And so that's just really cool. And so it was hard to believe that there was a bit of that they didn't get that across, that was a bad thing, that people didn't like that. until later, they kind of painted why that rubbed people the wrong way. But so there was a little bit of, I'm not really believing that everyone hates this person because Shapeshifter is really, really cool. But and a bit OP for what you can do as that character. I mean, you're basically all powerful, and so that's hard to kind of maximize for a story. But the other part was, and yet they did a good job with like the fun factor with that. Don't get me wrong, it was very fun, but the emotion of God, I jotted down some notes here. Yeah, that everyone wanted to basically hurt her or harm her, and basically bringing home the idea that she's different and she is this person that everyone's against. And that also I found kind of dissonant because she was all about killing at the beginning. She wanted to be the bad guy. She was like trying to coerce the other main character, I forget his name, and she was like, let's go kill, and yet then she wants to or expresses how everyone's out to get her, but yet that's who she's being. Yeah. And of course later on we get into the thrust of the messaging, which is, we can make monsters by how we treat people or reject people, and we need to sort of look into what has made a person this way. And I mean, it's a great message, and so I just found that took a while to get there. Yeah. And so before that part, it was like it just wasn't really connecting emotionally with me. Yeah.
There's just like you kind of wanted the boot to drop earlier. That this was her emotional backstory.
Well, I can see why they waited too. Yeah. From a story structure perspective, it's better to have certain reveals later, but it might not have worked the best for this story because of the dissonance that happens up until that point. For me, anyway.
Oh, I got you. But it was still a very endearing character at the very least.
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing that I was going to say about the pro of this movie is that Nimona's character is really fresh, and I love that they didn't succumb to like making her the Disney princess. Like I love that she was different, that she was kind of normal and everyday, and a character that doesn't have like the Disney princess look, and had a very fun personality.
Yeah, honestly, I like it when people say like it's not like a Disney princess, because in my head it's just another way of just saying like they're human. Because typically Disney princesses are supposed to be perfect, like in every single way you could imagine, right? But like I was honestly like hesitant to call Nimona like a rebel, because I almost feel like a lot of people would be kind of like Nimona, just kind of like living life, still trying to find the fun in things, making friends like that.
Well, and yet there is one of the philosophical questions that comes up with this movie is there's one thing to be just living life. Yeah. There's another thing to be destroying cities.
Exactly right. Which is why a little element of there is almost like freaking, I don't know. Yeah, that rebellious. I'm trying to anarchist. That was the one word I was thinking. But yeah, no, I think through watching the movie, I kind of figured that she was misunderstood. I always figure like, because I've seen stories where it's like I'm like the monster that everyone like says I am, so I kind of had to play into that. So I kind of felt that, and like it is very easy to see Nimona as a rebel, so you can always like view it through that lens as well. But yeah, like it honestly was extremely emotional once we did get to that backstory of, like, you know, she met a friend, you know, she was like a woodland creature at the very beginning, you know, of time.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this is the first friend she ever met, and then, you know, she full betray.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, she had, like, her major all-is loss was, like, you know, she was about to impale herself on a statue of her former friend,
Mm-hmm.
who everybody in this world canonically kind of reveres and, like, appreciates and builds statues in, like, her honor. So yeah, no, it was kind of.
And then she goes on to sacrifice herself to destroy the real monster, which was the director.
The director. Oh yes, the director of the yes.
not the director of the film.
Yes, of course, the director of the movie.
I think that's what the character was called. I could be wrong.
I think so. It was the boss lady or something like that.
Yeah, but I think she had a name like director of some sort.
I'll have to check out the names again. I'm totally, like, fine. Like, just because I forget a name of a character doesn't mean I hated the movie. It's just I'm bad with names.
Well, I forget the character. I only remember Nimona's name.
Yeah, I mean, it was the title character anyways. So, but yeah, I mean, the other thing is, like, the thing people, like, talk about it a lot, because Nimona kind of came out after Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, who kind of, like, started off the I guess making 3D movies look 2D, like, you know, with a graphic novel style, you know, artistic, watercolor, whatever. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish also came out of that. But, like, how do you like the like, kind of the graphic novel cartoony style of it?
Oh, the animation style was excellent. I felt like it kind of crossed over into anime feel a little bit. Like the eyes were definitely very big.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody does that.
Everyone,
Disney does that.
Yeah.
But these, I don't know. It just my eyes kind of, I don't know, locked in more to their eyes. The eye style was very noticeable. And in general, I mean, very good animation.
Yeah, I think so too. Because
And a good, like, having a shapeshifter is something that is very conducive for an animated movie, because there's just allows, the medium allows for so much more use of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
fun use.
It'd be it would be a lot more difficult to film it live.
Yes. The CGI budget would also be very high.
It would be very high. Which is why I sometimes hate it when an animated film goes live action CGI, because I always feel like they always do it better animation. Mm-hmm. But hey, that's a completely different tangent for another day. But yeah, I only talk about animation style because the equivalent of talking cinematography, which is actually the kind of thing I want to talk about when I talk about Pitch Black.
Okay.
Because when the first few minutes, like, of Pitch Black was actually kind of off-putting.
Okay.
Yeah, like, in terms of just, like, because they did, like, a very interesting thing with the coloring for many of the scenes, right? Mm-hmm, where it switches from a very orangey palette to very blue palette to then, like, red for, like, the ship scenes. And then whenever we jump in and out of, like, people's heads, then it's, like, very, very stark whites and purples and stuff like that. So this is an element that is not part of my 3-level ranking of, like, you know, entertainment, artistry, and then plot. The unspoken, like, 0 rule was watchability. Okay. And honestly, kind of hurt a little bit to watch.
Okay.
I actually don't think there's an epilepsy warning at the beginning of this movie, but this is I'm going to say this now for people who do want to watch this: epilepsy warning, because I think there genuinely was some strobe lighting in that movie, just a little bit.
Like the crash scene.
The crash scene, and it was just off-putting for, like, the first few minutes of a movie. Because, like, I was still in it. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna at least close my eyes for this. Mm-hmm. But I almost kind of feel like if I was watching this casually, if you didn't recommend it to me, I might have turned it off.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
But, like, I'm honestly glad that I kind of stayed into it, because it was generally a really, really fun, like, action, you know, survival horror story as well.
Mm-hmm. And one that actually has a lot of color in it.
Yeah, color in it.
The rest of the movie.
Definitely. Because, like, light plays a huge, plot role in this movie, because the alien monsters in this movie are averse to light. And so, you know, they had, like, really, really, like, cool things to do, because they had to work with different light sources, they had to work with sun, they had to work with fire, they had to work with neon. They had to work with the bioluminescence of bugs.
So they had very creative uses.
Yeah, very creative
to
uses.
deal with an enemy that was averse to light.
Exactly.
Going back to color for a second.
Yeah.
It was a 2 or 3 star system that this planet had.
Yeah.
So it had multiple suns, one of which was kind of like a yellowy one was a bluey one. So there was different color palettes used at different times.
Oh, I got. I must have missed that.
I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, I thought that the color change was just like an emotional thing. It's like because they always did the blue when it was like a very like intimate
Yeah, no, that was
scene.
the star.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah.
Would that actually work like that? Because like when they did the pan out scene, it was like almost like Tatooine, where it's like one star was there, one star was there, and then the other one was like that way. So the blue sun was the one that was separate.
Well, so yeah, like I guess they go like when one sets or when one's lower, then the other one dominates the color
okay.
palette. I have no idea if that's the way it really would be on a planet like that, but they do classify stars with colors, and it's just kind of like a gradient thing. I mean, it's all producing light, but it's just slightly more one color, I think.
But still, at the very least, it was a choice to make it like that, right? And like, it didn't really like. I guess I guess it helped for the emotional scenes because like I always like associated blue with like very intimate scenes and like orange for more actiony scenes, which I think they kind of stuck consistently with throughout the whole thing. But it was a very, very like noticeable change. It was kind of very stark whenever they switched back and forth because it was very hard cuts.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a soft fade into blue. So I always was like, it always kind of took me out of the story a little bit. It's like, okay, now it's blue, now it's red, okay, now it's like yellow, okay, now it's literally hitting with strobe lights. So like,
so yeah, beware of, I guess, the strobe light factor.
Yeah.
But if you do like colors and colorful movies,
yeah, it was very colorful. I will say that. I guess, but to quickly jump into, this is always something I do with movies, and it's always the logic of them, right? Because, I'm going to say it in every single episode, animation, I'm more fine throwing logic to the wind, because animation, I hold live action to a little bit of a higher standard. And especially when it comes to like a horror survival, right? And you have an ensemble cast, I know 50 to all of them die by the end of them. 50% to all of them die by the end. And I was thinking, like, how are they going to do all the deaths, right? And like I always think like a good death to kill off like an ensemble character is to show off, right, the powers and abilities of the monster, which I think they did with the first couple of deaths, right? It's like, okay, these are very, very feral creatures, they're going to rip you to shreds and stuff like that. That's what happened to the first guy, right? And then for the next guy, it's like, okay, these creatures also fly. That's what they did for the second guy, right? And then once we get into the cave, then there's also the third kid. That was actually the really impactful death because they killed the kid in this movie, which always, whenever it happens in a movie, it's like, okay, this is a movie that kills kids. Okay, we know the full stakes of this. They fully did it, right? That was the first 3 deaths. I thought they were the most impactful. And then we get into the even more side characters dying off, which then kind of got a little bit weird because they set up that they're averse to light, right? But every single time one of these characters die, with the exception of one, they were kind of in light. So I always kind of like wonder like how impactful was it? So,
which I mean, it highlights the problem of a movie where you're dealing with being in the dark a lot.
Yeah,
how do you film that?
How do you film it, right?
So they probably had to cheat a little bit. I can't quite remember those scenes exactly, but
I think because there were 4 characters that died like after like the midpoint, right? 2 of them definitely died. No, actually, no. It really was one. It was just one. It was the collector. The British collector who dies extremely stupidly. He crawls away from the battery pack they were using for light, pulling out the power source, killing it out for everybody because they were being attacked by bats or like the monster creatures that they know they couldn't touch.
Stupidly, yet it highlights, I think, how people might react when they're overwhelmed.
I guess, but like, I kind of just feel like in a movie, it was a choice, and it's like, they're doing this, and like it's happened so many times. Like, it's always in the horror movie where it's like, okay, everybody be quiet, everyone be quiet, and the one guy screams.
But how fun would horror be if no one acted like irrationally from the fear and like let it overwhelm
them? I
them?
can't help but roll my eyes just a little bit. So. And I kind of figured that he was the comedic character anyways, and the way he went out was like kind of funny. But like
when he blows the
thing, and it's like,
fire.
yeah, it's like boom. But then the other two characters, I kind of hated the way they died, because like there's the one like interesting thing that they did with the movie is like the ensemble cast was like the collector, it was the pilot, it was the criminal, the cop, and like these four. I hope I don't get this wrong, but Muslim people going on the Hajj. They're going to the new Mecca, which is an interesting world building thing we never get to see. But they're going to the new Mecca.
Yeah.
Actually, very, very small detail that I actually quite liked. When they do pray, a lot of Muslim people, they have to pray to the Mecca, I think, the big square. And so when they do play on the planet, they actually look up. So I really like that one detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I hated the way they off the other two like Muslim characters that were in there, because they really just killed them off like violating their one rule, and also kind of like unceremoniously.
I can't remember.
Yeah, the first guy dies because he runs away in the darkness when the criminal guy tells him to just chill. So he did the very classic horror thing.
Yeah.
Then the other guy, he gets his leg slashed, and they're in fire or in light. But then he gets his like neck grabbed by one of the monsters with his tail, and he's pulled away. It's like, oh man, I really wish like a couple of these guys. So the only,
but that does highlight the other power of the creature, that it has a tail.
It has a tail, but like they were in light, so I'm like, how effective this is really. And then we had to get to the final death, which was the main protagonist of the movie, essentially, right? Who's one like kind of arc throughout the whole story. Is like, I am fully ready to kill all of these people to preserve myself. And then it transitions to, I'm willing to die for these people. And, you can kind of track that arc throughout.
That was her character arc.
That was her character arc for sure, dude. And, like, you can definitely track it through in, right? And, like, once we get to the end, it's like, okay, she's, like, she's going to help the big bad, like, the guy she could have, like, honestly left behind. And I hated the way she went out. Because not only was she holding light, which was like the bioluminescent bugs, but then she gets stabbed through the chest by like the guy's head or something like that, while in the arms of the other dude. And
I don't know if it was the head; it might have been the tail, but
or something like that. Because it was definitely the way I remember the scene is the bat thing like flying like kind of like a C shape to it. So it could have been the head, it could have been the tail. But like I almost kind of figured this was going to be like a skewer type thing, where it's like both of them were going to go out, but then it was just only one, and then she like flies away. And it's like. So like in the list of like heroic deaths, it wasn't honestly that heroic, because like even when she was like helping him back to the ship, it wasn't like she was holding him like carrying on his back or something. It's like, I'm going to support you and stuff like that, and they're kind of like tumbling over each other, and then she dies, and then we hard cut to him just back on the ship. It's like, did she really even need his help? So that was the one logic issue, and I kind of like hated the ending a little bit, just killing off the character like that. But I think the one kind of thing they did, the reason why like I'm like kind of fine with it, and honestly it might honestly be a bad part of the movie, is that Vin Diesel's character was so much more fun to see on screen than the female protagonist.
I mean, it was all about Vin Diesel. Like, that movie was made around him.
Yeah.
And it kind of put him on the map to some degree.
A little bit, because like if you look at the cover of it, it literally says Vin Diesel's name. Like, it's the only one on the cover, despite him not being the protagonist character. So I mean, yeah.
I mean, I loved the female protagonist too. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was a really good, well-crafted story, and that you picked up on this. The author, David Twohy, the screenwriter, he wanted to play with who's the antagonist, who's the protagonist.
Yeah,
and so he, like, you've got this bounty hunter who's got Vin Diesel locked up, and you assume that the bounty hunter is the good guy.
Yeah.
Well, that switches pretty fast when the pilot, like you say, is willing to sacrifice everybody to save her own skin. And we find out that the bounty hunter actually like uses drugs and is a very unscrupulous man who doesn't really care about anything except his paycheck.
Yeah, which, like, as far as like antagonizing character goes, it's kind of soft. But compared to literally the guy that says is like the full-time like high intensity criminal who's like tattooed his eyes to make him see in the dark, who's like physically assaulted like several of the characters in the movie, and like throughout the whole thing was like stalking them. When I saw like the police officer bounty hunter dude like start doing drugs and say like, I'm doing this for a job, I'm like, yeah, that's a hitman. That's what they do. That's just kind of how I visualize a hitman.
Well,
Bounty
hitman,
hunter.
bounty hunter.
Bounty
Now
hunter.
we're getting into
Yeah.
two kind of different types of things. But at any rate, he tried to set it up
Yeah.
where he's the good guy who's trying to corral the bad.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Vin Diesel's character is bad.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's kind of a redemption story for Vin Diesel.
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
his character, Riddick. Why don't we call him his character
Yeah,
name?
Riddick. Thank you. I was going to because I forgot his name, but yeah, it is Riddick. I was actually going to call him Bot Trick, but
But yeah, so I mean, the bounty hunter
Yeah.
is just bad as well.
Yeah.
And then we find out that the pilot is kind of bad too. So there's kind of like no
Yeah,
one good.
no one's good, right.
as far as the main characters.
yeah, I think the only like non-corruptible one was literally the Imam, which is the Muslim leader. It was like he was like just constantly, just like overall
He was
good.
principled.
Principal.
and-
He was the cleric of the group. If we're
Yeah.
gonna like go D&D roles, like he was the cleric. Riddick was the the paladin, barbarian. The pilot was probably like a ranger scout, and the rest of them were associated knights and adventurers.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
yeah, but
But yeah, the act that she did at the very end was go back for him because she didn't know if he needed help or
Yeah,
not. And we don't know how much help he actually needed because he was able to kind of move on his own feet. But she was kind of, regardless, laying down her own life by going back for him.
yeah, exactly.
And that's what I love about the first Pitch Black is that he is impacted by that act.
Yeah,
and
he
it
is.
and it even to the point where he says the line, the old Riddick died on that planet. And so it's really this story of redemption as originally written.
Yeah,
And
I
then
guess.
later on the sequels, he's just Riddick. He's
Yeah,
coming
he's
back.
Riddick.
He's going to be the
Because
bad guy again.
That was the one thing I was doing after discovering this, because I was talking to one of my friends about it. It's like, and they are also like a person who's like an anime fan, like full animation. It's like, oh, I'm watching this movie today. It's like, oh, Riddick. It's like, oh my gosh, you know this movie. It's like, yeah, though I watched the animation of it, and so that's how I now know that there's an animation of
Yeah,
Riddick,
and
which
I haven't even watched the animation.
Yeah, I'm honestly trying to find a way to watch it, but like I saw the trailer and honestly it looks really, really good.
I think they did a good job with
They
it.
did a good job because I think it was an Asian company, a Korean, that
okay.
was the animation house behind it. But yeah, really good action. That's the one thing that I think I like about it. It's just once we got past like the first opening, once you got into straight like action, suspense, survival, I was like, yeah, no, I'm fully into this. I'm ready to get out of this. It was honestly. I'm actually kind of happy because as a person who is kind of like very averse to horror, that the monsters weren't that scary. I mean, they were very like off-putting and frightening, but it didn't do jump scares. And so watching that at night, I'm very, very happy because I didn't view that one as a horror. I didn't look up any reviews for that. As I said, I don't look up reviews for movies I intend on watching. That includes your movies. So I didn't know this as a horror. So
Yeah, I mean it's when it came out, it was
Yeah.
probably considered a lot more horry and scary
Yeah.
than it is now, like comparatively to what comes out now.
Yeah.
But this movie came out, I think, in '99 or early 2000s.
yeah, I think it was 2000s. Yeah.
Maybe 2001 or 2 or something.
Yeah,
but-
because like I mean the easiest comparisons I can make to this was Alien, just in terms of like Alien survival planet thing,
Yeah.
but it didn't go that level of like full like alien horror.
Yeah.
Like the monsters did one thing and it was kill. It was very like comparable to Lions, right? The other thing that I can compare this to was Dune,
Oh, yeah.
just because like not only like the artiness of it, but also there was like the religious aspect of it, being like the Muslim characters are into it. And I don't really know if they actually played up that aspect of it a lot, like the fact that they were Muslims and then there was like an element of like God or like their own like survival
No,
skills.
they didn't really go into it.
Yeah, they didn't really go into it, so it was kind of just like that's why I always felt like it was kind of weird to like have those characters in there to essentially die.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
like you said first, it's world building.
It was world building,
It's a sci-fi, but they ground it by putting elements in of our ancient Earth history,
Yeah.
and that Islam has now survived into the future.
Yeah, which is probably why they had like the Muslim characters and then also the collector of ancient antiques in there, because like that's how we get like the human Earth aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because the ship that does crash is a settler ship or like a cargo ship that just carried passengers. So that was cool. I still liked it as like this is a very eclectic cast of people. But yeah.
One thing that I want to point out about Pitch Black is the character intro. We learned a little bit in some of our classes about introducing our characters and how we should do that in a special way that really highlights who they are as much as we can to kind of encapsulate that when we first meet them. And I love the way that this movie opens. And interestingly enough, it's done with narration.
It is. It's Riddick who is just saying literally like the main characteristics of all these people, but they're doing it over pretty essentially like very similar shots of them because they're all baked in red. They're all in the cryopods. They're all sleeping, right?
But
so, yeah.
and so it's good for I mean a little bit of exposition on the other characters, but his own description of himself, how it opens. I don't know if you remember, but he says they say most of your brain shuts down in cryosleep, except for the animal side. The primitive side. I guess that's why I'm still awake. I love that line.
Yeah, because he was genuinely like superhuman in this movie. He was really like, I'm pretty sure it's just because like prison hardened him. Like that's the logic. It's like, oh, you know, prison made me this way, and like also I'm just like generally like messed up person. But yeah, he was honestly scary.
And how well does that not like fit his character?
It does. Like it's like when I think Vin Diesel, that's a Vin Diesel character now. Like I'm very happy that you actually gave this to me because like now I know where Fast and Furious guy came from.
Yes, same world, same universe.
World. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, right? You know, the old Riddick died on that planet, and now I drive Mustangs.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Overall, I think I'd honestly give it like a 3.5.
Okay.
Just because I still can't go over like the little off-puttingness, and also just they killed off a couple of characters like very unceremonious ways. But as like an action adventure, pretty standard. I think pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was going to give Nimona as well. I have to start being a bit more
be a bit more critical.
Yeah. And so just the emotional distance at the first half was what put me off a bit.
Yeah. Totally fair enough, right? Oh, yeah.
Well, there we go. Episode 3.
Episode 3.
In the books. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will say goodbye until the next time.
Yep. This is Dave and Jay signing off.
Signing off.
That's a wrap. Special thanks to Niranj, who made the intro and outro music for this podcast. You can find him on Instagram at his handle @NiranjD. That is @NIRANJD on Instagram.